This is Star TV News, the Saturday edition weekend news. I am Malik Jones. In the headlines tonight, secularism is a real-time bomb, says Sheikh Ahmed Tijan Jaite of the Supreme Islamic Council. 3 years Jotna officials say they are not scared amid attempted arrest of Sheriff Sisai. Numerous convicted criminals and murderers among protesters, says government spokesperson Ibrahima Sankare. In other news, many Burundian refugees are too afraid to return home. Italy's Di Mario should hold talks with Libya's rival leaders. And Russian jets allegedly targeted displaced civilians in Syria. Those are the stories that made the headlines this week. And now the news in detail. As consultations on the first draft constitution are winding down, the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council (GSIC) on Tuesday in a press briefing at their office reaffirmed their vehement opposition to inserting the word secular in the country's law, with one cleric describing secularism as a real-time bomb. This report from Maimuna Juf.
Last month, the Constitutional Review Commission (CRC) issued the first draft constitution for public consultation. The 11-member panel reiterated its commitment to ensuring that the constitutional review process continues to be guided by the principles of transparency, participation, inclusiveness, representation, and national ownership. In an attempt to deconstruct what he described as misinformation that is now being spelled out by those pushing ahead with a secularism agenda, Sheikh Jaite warned Muslims against what he perceived as carrying a very powerful ideological moral destruction dimension. Far from mincing his words, Sheikh Ahmed Jaite said when the word secular is inserted in the constitution, the entire constitutional system will collapse. However, he indicated that when the word is expunged from the constitution, the whole constitutional system will remain intact, pure, and consecrated. Similar sentiments were echoed by Imam Usman Jah, who called on the drafters to ensure that the constitution remains silent on the issue of secularism. Imam Jah, who is a leading voice of the Supreme Islamic Council, said the peaceful coexistence between people from different religions highly depends on the silence of the constitution about secularism. Meanwhile, a GSIC position paper seen by this medium reminded the CRC about the highest Muslims body 2018 rejection of secularism. The council wanted the country to remain a non-secular state. For Star TV News, I am Maimuna Juf.
Furthermore, the CRC wishes to announce that due to the numerous requests it has received to extend the period of public consultations on the draft constitution, it has extended the public consultation period to Tuesday, 31st December. Persons wishing to make written contributions to the CRC are encouraged to do so not later than 2 p.m. on the stated public deadline. No further written contributions will be received beyond the stated deadline. Operation 3 Years Jotna has expressed concern over the attempted arrest of Sheriff Sisai, a prominent member of the group. Police officers from Brikama reportedly went for Sheriff Sisai twice on Tuesday in an attempt to arrest him. We have this report from Jacqueline Coley.
Sheriff Sisai, who spoke to reporters at his home in Farata, confirmed the story. It comes a day after Mr. Sisai revealed that Operation 3 Years will stage a fresh protest on 28 January 2020 if President Adama Barrow refuses to leave office. Thousands of Gambians, mainly youths, marched to the streets of the capital city on Monday, piling pressure on their transitional leader, President Adama Barrow. They are demanding that he steps down in honor of the agreement he made with the 2016 coalition stakeholders. The group came out to ask the president to honor his promise to serve only 3 years as agreed by his coalition partners. Mr. Barrow has since made his intention to serve the full 5-year term as mandated by the Constitution. Jacqueline Coley, reporting for Star TV News.
Ibrahima Sankare, the spokesperson of the government, has alleged that numerous people among thousands of Gambians who attended the peaceful protest on Monday were one-time convicted criminals and murderers. We have more in this report from Binta Koli.
Decry what he described as negative comments against him during standoff at Denton Bridge. He said people that insulted him were former convicted murderers who did not represent the opinion of the 3 years Jotna movement. He further alleged that there were convicted and pardoned murderers at the demonstration. Not everybody who was there represented the opinion of the Jotna movement, and to suggest that the Jotna people did not want to give me their petition is false. They never said that. It came from some people in the crowd who were saying, we don't need Sankare. We need President Barrow because Sankare is too small for that, he argued. Mr. Sankare said he was not sent as an interlocutor between the 3 years Jotna movement and the government, adding that he was on the ground to play an active fair role. He further added that the pioneers of the 3 years Jotna pledge apologically on certain strange behavioral patterns during the protest. Sankare confirmed that he delivered a petition letter to President Adama Barrow. I received the petition letter and I took it to the president hand to hand. I shook his hand and I thank him for trusting me. I have gone there and this is the envelope. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Binta Koli.
We'll now take a short break. When we come back, we'll look at news away from home. Welcome back. Burundi is one of many countries in Africa where refugees are a major concern. Thousands fled 4 years ago when hundreds were killed in political violence connected to the presidential election. Many refugees have returned home from camps in neighboring countries, but others say they are afraid to return home. Al Jazeera's Catherine Soy reports from Ramonge.
Javier Kubuyo and his family have just returned home from a refugee camp in Kenya. They fled in 2015 at the height of political violence that broke out over President Pierre Nkurunziza's third-term election. Kubuyo brings home a new son, born in the camp, and is hoping another election scheduled for next year will go ahead peacefully.
My parents have planted maize where my house was. I'll find a way to rebuild. I just need to find a place to stay.
About 100 kilometers southwest of Kubuyo's home, another family that's returned from a camp in Tanzania is settling back. Wanike de Gracious lives in Rumonge province on the shores of Lake Tanganyika.
I left in 2015 because I was scared. I witnessed the ethnic conflict from 1993, so I fled with my family because I did not want them to experience what I did. But I'm tired of running and I will stay here no matter what happens.
Government officials in Burundi have told refugees in neighboring countries that the country is peaceful. They say the repatriation from Tanzania is voluntary, but some human rights campaigners say food rations in the camps have been reduced and refugees' movements restricted. More than 80,000 Burundians have come back home in the last few years, but many others still in refugee camps in Tanzania say they're not ready to return. Some say they're afraid that next year's election could also turn violent. The name Imbonerakure, a youth wing of the ruling party, seems to invoke fear in many places.
Those people are effectively spies for the ruling party, and when someone new returns, they instantly are going to suspect that person. So we've heard cases of disappearances, we've heard cases of pressure, immediate pressure to join the ruling party or suffer the consequences, and we've heard cases of people immediately returning back to Tanzania because they just found the situation was intolerable.
Government officials deny the accusations.
Imbonerakure are young members of the ruling party. They don't cause any harm. Everything, even in the countryside, is peaceful. Returnees are being welcomed back very warmly.
Javier says he hopes he can stay out of politics and keep his family safe. Catherine Soy, Al Jazeera, Rumonge, Burundi.
Italy's foreign minister has met rival leaders in Libya to try to prevent an escalation in the conflict there. Luigi Di Maio had separate meetings with Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj of the UN-recognized government of National Accord in Tripoli and renegade military commander Khalifa Haftar, who is based in the east. Haftar is trying to take Tripoli, and the United Nations has called on the rival governments, who each have international backers, to agree to a political solution. Al Jazeera's Andrew Chappelle reports.
Reinforcements are heading to the front line for what could be the final battle for Tripoli. Militia allied to the internationally recognized government moved heavy weapons and fighters south to the outskirts of the capital.
We, the Mahjoub Brigade support forces, are on our way to the capital, Tripoli. We are on our way, and God willing, we will be victorious.
Haftar's forces are also reinforcing their front lines. Each side has foreign help. Turkey has offered to send troops in support of the Tripoli government, while Haftar has soldiers for hire.
There are 1,000 new Russian mercenaries deployed to Tripoli, according to 2 U.S. officials and one source in Moscow quoted in Bloomberg News. Sudanese and Chadian mercenaries all assembling on the front lines for what they're calling the final push. So it's increasingly likely that Turkey will deploy something to help defend Tripoli if needed by the GNA.
With the threat of escalation looming, Italy's Foreign Minister Luigi Di Maio met with both sides on Tuesday, holding talks with Fayez al-Sarraj in Tripoli and then with Haftar in the eastern city of Rajma, inviting him to Rome for further talks. The UN is calling for the two, the rival governments and international backers, to agree to a political solution.
We continue to call for de-escalation and for active support by all Libyans and international actors engaged in Libya to find a peaceful and political solution to end the conflict and by addressing its underlying causes. I think it's important that the international community as a whole rally around the efforts of the Libyan people, of course, and also of the efforts of the Secretary General's representative, Mr. Salameh, in trying to find a political solution.
This conflict, analysts say, is becoming less and less about Libya, with international actors pulling the strings and flooding the battlefield. Andrew Chappelle, Al Jazeera.
At least 23 civilians have been killed in the latest round of Russian and Syrian government attacks on rebel-held areas of northwest Syria. Shelling and air raids in Idlib province have escalated in recent weeks. Opposition activists say President Bashar al-Assad's government appears to be preparing for a ground offensive. Its aim is to secure the main highway linking the capital Damascus with the northern city of Aleppo. We have this report from Victoria Gatambi of Al Jazeera.
The attacks on Idlib province are relentless, they're intensifying, and witnesses say the majority of victims are civilians. Volunteer paramedics known as the White Helmets are there within minutes to do what they've done thousands of times during the war, try to save the lives of civilians.
At about 11 o'clock in the morning, a fighter jet, believed to be Russian, carried out 6 successive air raids in the Majani and Yoktan areas. They targeted displaced people living in tents. 1 girl was killed and 6 others injured. They're in critical condition and were rushed to hospital. Civil defense crews are still combing the area, searching for survivors.
Badama was one of 35 villages hit by Russian and Syrian government forces in Idlib province in the last 48 hours. Opposition activists say President Bashar al-Assad's government appears to be preparing for a ground offensive. Its aim is to secure the main highway linking the capital Damascus with the northern city of Aleppo. The increase in attacks is having a devastating impact on people here. This man's wife and 3 daughters were killed in an airstrike. 4 million Syrians live in Idlib province, which is under the control of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, an armed group with former links to al-Qaeda. The airstrikes on the northwestern province are in breach of the de-escalation deal Russia and Turkey agreed last September. But the Syrian government says recapturing the province is just a matter of time. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera.
The impeachment inquiry into whether the President of the United States, Donald Trump, should be removed from office has done little to unite United States voters. After weeks of hearings, public opinion remains split. But with the presidential election fast approaching, will it make a difference at the polls? Al Jazeera's Andy Gallagher reports from the bellwether state of Florida.
Not impeachable.
The impeachment hearings into President Trump's dealings with Ukraine began in November. The hearings have, at times, been dramatic, revealing and deeply partisan. In places like Gramps Bar in Miami, though, you're not likely to hear patrons talking about what many see as a political crisis. It's something owner Adam Gerston doesn't shy away from. He holds election watch parties here, isn't afraid of heated debate, but says most have lost interest despite his efforts.
There's not an aha moment where you suddenly save democracy. It's a long slog and you've got to stick with it. And so my part in sticking with it is keeping people engaged and exposing them to what's actually happening.
Exposure to the twists and turns of politics may not be as crucial in deeply Republican or Democratic states, but Florida, and especially its Hispanic voters, will be pivotal in the 2020 presidential election.
I guess I kind of care, but only like if he actually does get impeached. But for the most part, like I haven't been keeping up with it.
Until voting occurs, I have no power in the situation, so I don't pay attention. I don't care.
It's so hard to weed through all the information out there, and it seems like people are on such different sides of it that it's hard to, at this point, understand what's going on, at least for myself.
As the 2020 presidential election looms, the fight to sway public opinion appears to have wavered. Analysts say that could have implications for the Democrats.
They claim that Trump was a Russian stooge who was going to destroy the country. The Mueller investigation found out that wasn't true and sort of decimated those Trump-Russia conspiracy theories. And now people are left wondering, is this just more partisan bickering?
Voters remain divided, firmly in one camp or the other. The Sunshine State, though, has a history of deciding the nation's fate. How people feel matters.
If Florida does one thing consistently, it tends to reflect the mood of the entire country. For decades, Florida voters have backed the winning presidential candidate. And that's mostly because the demographics here make this a mini version of the United States. So a collective shrug here could be seen as a fairly accurate reflection of the current mood. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera, Miami, Florida.
And just before we end the news, a recap of our main headlines. Secularism is a real-time bomb, says Sheikh Ahmed Jaite of the Gambia's Supreme Islamic Council. 3 years Jotna officials say they are not scared amid attempted arrest of Sheriff Sisai. Numerous convicted criminal and murderers were among protesters, according to government spokesperson Ibrahim Sankara. The Constitutional Review Commission (CRC) announces that due to numerous requests it has received to extend the period of public consultation on the draft constitution, it has extended the public consultation period to Tuesday, December 31st. Well, that's all we have for you in the Saturday edition of the Weekend News. I am Malik Jones. Good night.